The fluorescent lights of Courtroom 4B hummed with a persistence that made Marcus Webb's headache worse. He sat rigid in his chair at the defense table, his navy blue suit, the only one he owned, purchased for his wedding 7 years ago, now hung loose on his frame. 30 pounds lost in 6 months. Stress would do that to a man facing 20 years in prison for a crime he didn't commit. "Ladies and gentlemen of the jury," District Attorney Richard Thornhill began, his voice dripping with practiced confidence, "the evidence before you is not complicated. It is not ambiguous. It is, in fact, crystal clear." Marcus felt his wife Jennifer's eyes burning into the back of his head from the gallery. He didn't dare turn around. If he saw her face, saw the fear, the exhaustion, the mortgage the house to pay for lawyers' desperation, he might break down completely. And men who broke down in court looked guilty. His public defender, Michael Chen, had told him that during their 15-minute preparation meeting. 15 minutes. That's all Chen could spare for the biggest case of Marcus's life. Thornhill continued his opening statement, packing before the jury box like a performer on stage. On the night of March 15th, at approximately 10:47 p.m., a masked individual entered Quick Stop Convenience on Patterson Avenue. He threatened clerk Maria Rodriguez with what appeared to be a handgun. He escaped with $2,847 in cash. But he made one critical mistake. The prosecutor paused for dramatic effect, letting the silence build. He left his scent behind. Marcus watched as 3 jurors nodded knowingly. Juror number 7, a middle-aged woman with reading glasses on a chain, actually smiled. They loved this part. Everyone loved the dog. Within 40 minutes of the 911 call, Officer Derek Hansen and his K-9 partner, Rex, a German Shepherd with a 95% accuracy rate, arrived on scene. Rex is not just any police dog, ladies and gentlemen. He's a decorated member of the Jefferson County Sheriff's Department with over 200 successful tracks. 200 times this dog has followed a scent trail and found his target. 200 times he's been right. Thornhill produced an enlarged photograph of Rex, positioned it on an easel facing the jury. The dog looked majestic, alert, powerful, everything a hero should be. Rex picked up the perpetrator's scent from the store's entrance. And where did he lead Officer Hansen? Through 3 city blocks, past dozens of buildings, past hundreds of potential routes, straight to apartment 3C at 742 Riverside Drive. Marcus felt the words like physical blows. Marcus Webb's apartment. Jennifer's sharp intake of breath was audible even from 3 rows back. Marcus finally risked a glance over his shoulder. His wife's face was pale, her hands clasped so tightly her knuckles had gone white. Beside her, his mother dabbed at her eyes with a tissue. The gallery was packed. Neighbors, former coworkers, people who'd once called him friend now sat in judgment, their faces a mixture of shock and disappointment. The worst part was knowing some of them believed he'd done it. "Now the defense will try to tell you that Mr. Webb was home that night," Thornhill continued, turning to face Marcus directly. "They'll say he was watching a movie with his wife and children. How convenient, how utterly unprovable." Michael Chen shifted uncomfortably beside Marcus, his pen tapping an anxious rhythm on his legal pad. At 28, Chen was drowning under a caseload of 73 clients. Marcus was just another file, another impossible situation with no resources to fight back. "But science doesn't lie," Thornhill declared, his voice rising. "Dogs don't fabricate evidence. Rex's nose is 100,000 times more sensitive than a human's. When Rex tracked that scent to Marcus Webb's door, he was following an olfactory trail as unique as a fingerprint, as definitive as DNA." Marcus wanted to scream, wanted to stand up and shout the truth. "I was home. I was with my family. I didn't do this." But Chen had warned him. "Stay quiet. Look innocent but not too innocent. Don't react emotionally. The jury is watching everything." So Marcus sat frozen, a statue of a man whose life was being systematically dismantled. "The evidence will show," Thornhill said, approaching the jury box with the familiarity of someone who'd won this room 100 times before, "that Marcus Webb was drowning in debt. Credit cards maxed out. Car payment 3 months behind. His daughter's daycare threatening to kick them out for non-payment. A man gets desperate in situations like that, desperate enough to slip out of his apartment while his wife puts the kids to bed. Desperate enough to walk 3 blocks to a convenience store he knew would have cash on hand. Desperate enough to pull on a mask and make a terrible, terrible choice." The story sounded so plausible, so rational, Marcus felt sick. And when he returned home thinking he'd gotten away with it, he never imagined that Rex would be coming. Never imagined that his scent, unique, identifiable, impossible to hide, would betray him. Juror number 3, a young man in his 20s, was staring at Marcus with undisguised disgust. Marcus looked down at his hands. They were shaking. Thornhill moved back to his table, letting his words sink in. "Over the next few days, you'll hear testimony from Officer Hansen. You'll learn about Rex's impeccable training, his track record, his reliability. You'll see that when that dog led police to Marcus Webb's door, he was doing exactly what years of training had taught him to do: find the guilty party." The prosecutor picked up a folder, held it like a holy relic. "The defense has no physical evidence. No alibi witnesses besides a loyal wife. No explanation for why an infallible police dog would lead officers directly to an innocent man's home, because there is no explanation. There is only the truth." Thornhill looked each juror in the eye, one by one. "Marcus Webb is guilty, and by the end of this trial, you'll know it beyond any shadow of doubt." He sat down to absolute silence. Marcus's hands wouldn't stop shaking. His future, his freedom, his family, his entire life, rested on 12 strangers who were already looking at him like he was a criminal. And the trial had only just begun. Officer Derek Hansen took the witness stand with the confidence of a man who'd never lost a case. At 42, with 15 years on the force and a chest full of commendations, he wore his uniform like armor. His salt and pepper hair was cut military precise, his posture ramrod straight. When he placed his hand on the Bible to swear his oath, his voice didn't waver even slightly. "I do solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth and nothing but the truth, so help me God." From the defense table, Michael Chen scribbled notes that Marcus couldn't read. Probably something about attack angles, credibility challenges, reasonable doubt. But Marcus had seen enough courtroom dramas to know the truth. Cops almost always won, especially cops with dogs. District Attorney Thornhill approached the witness stand like he was greeting an old friend. "Officer Hansen, please tell the jury about your K-9 partner, Rex." Hansen's stern face softened almost imperceptibly. "Rex is a 3-year-old German Shepherd, trained at the National K-9 Academy in Virginia. He's certified in narcotics detection, suspect apprehension, and scent tracking. He's been my partner for 2 years, and in that time, we've completed over 200 successful operations together." 200, Thornhill repeated, making sure the jury absorbed the number. "And what's Rex's success rate in scent tracking specifically?" 95%, Hansen replied without hesitation. "Out of 127 tracks, he successfully located his target 121 times. The 6 times he didn't find the target, the trail went cold due to environmental factors, heavy rain, cross-contamination from crowds, things beyond the dog's control. But when Rex has a viable scent trail, he follows it to the source. Every single time." Marcus felt Jennifer shift in her seat behind him. He'd promised her this morning that everything would be okay, that the truth would come out. Now those words felt like ash in his mouth. Thornhill produced a photograph, had it marked as evidence. "Is this Rex?" "Yes, sir." The image showed Rex in full working mode, alert, focused, his dark eyes sharp with intelligence. He was beautiful, Marcus had to admit, Powerful shoulders, glossy coat, the kind of dog that looked like he belonged on a movie poster. The kind of dog juries trusted implicitly. "Walk us through the night of March 15th, Thornhill instructed. "You received a call about the robbery at approximately 11:15 p.m. "Correct. Dispatch reported an armed robbery at the quick stop on Patterson Avenue. Single male suspect fled on foot heading east. I was 6 minutes away. I arrived on scene at 11:21 p.m. Hansen settled into his testimony with practiced ease, his voice steady and authoritative. Marcus watched the jury hanging on every word. Juror number 7, the woman with the reading glasses, was nodding along like she was listening to a trusted friend. "I brought Rex to the store's entrance where the suspect had first made contact. Let him smell the area where the suspect stood. Rex immediately alerted, ears forward, tail straight, full focus. He'd caught the scent. And then what happened? I gave him the track command. Rex pulled east on Patterson, exactly the direction witnesses said the suspect fled. He moved with purpose, nose to the ground, ignoring all distractions. We passed other pedestrians, trash cans, food smells from restaurants. Rex ignored all of it. He was locked onto one specific scent trail." Thornhill let the testimony breathe, giving the jury time to visualize the scene. "How far did Rex track?" 3 blocks. We went east on Patterson, then north on Riverside Drive. The scent trail led directly to 742 Riverside Drive, a 4-story apartment building. Rex tracked up the exterior stairs to the 3rd floor and stopped at apartment 3C. The courtroom was silent, except for the scratch of the court reporter's fingers on her stenography machine. "He stopped at the defendant's door," Thornhill clarified. "Yes, sir. Rex sat, that's his trained indication that he's found his target. He sat directly in front of apartment 3C and looked back at me. That's his way of saying, this is it. This is where the scent ends." Marcus felt every eye in the courtroom turn toward him. The weight of their stares was suffocating. "Officer Hansen, in your professional opinion, what does it mean when Rex tracks a scent from a crime scene to a specific location?" Hansen turned to face the jury directly. "It means the person whose scent he's following went from point A to point B in this case. From the convenience store to apartment 3C. Rex doesn't make mistakes about that. He follows the scent molecules that person left behind, from their skin, their breath, their clothing. It's like following a map that only he can see." "Is it possible Rex was confused, that he followed the wrong person?" "No, sir. Each person's scent is unique, like a fingerprint. Rex was following one specific individual's scent trail. The person who was in that store is the same person who went to that apartment." Michael Chen finally stood. "Objection, Your Honor. Speculation. The witness cannot know with certainty whose scent the dog was following." Judge Thornton looked up from her notes. "Overruled. The witness is qualified as an expert in K9 scent tracking. He may offer his professional opinion." Chen sat back down heavily, and Marcus felt another piece of hope crumble. "Officer Hansen," Thornhill continued, "how confident are you that Rex tracked the robbery suspect to Marcus Webb's apartment?" Hansen didn't hesitate. 100% confident. Rex has never given me a false indication. When he sits and alerts, that's the location, without question." Thornhill nodded slowly, letting the certainty hang in the air. "Without question," he repeated. "No further questions, Your Honor." As the prosecutor returned to his seat, Marcus risked another glance at Jennifer. Her face was streaked with silent tears. Next to her, his mother had her head bowed in prayer, her lips moving soundlessly. Michael Chen stood for cross-examination, his folder looking thin compared to Thornhill's massive case files. "Officer Hansen, you mentioned environmental factors can affect Rex's tracking. Heavy rain, crowds, things like that." "Yes, but there were no such factors on March 15th. Clear night, light foot traffic." How many other German Shepherds are registered in Jefferson County? Hansen frowned slightly. I wouldn't know the exact number. Would it surprise you to learn there are over 300? Objection, Thornhill called out. Relevance. Your Honor, I'm establishing that scent trails can be complicated. Overruled. Answer the question, Officer Hansen. Hansen shifted in his seat. I suppose that number sounds reasonable, but I don't see how it's relevant. Rex was following a human scent, not a dog's scent. Of course, Chen said, though Marcus detected something in his attorney's voice, a thread of an idea forming. No further questions. As Hansen stepped down from the witness stand, Marcus watched the jury's faces. They believed every word. They believed in Rex, in his 95% success rate, in his infallible nose. They believed Marcus was guilty. And there wasn't a single thing Marcus could do to prove otherwise. The phone's shrill ring shattered the pre-dawn silence at 6:47 a.m. Jennifer Webb jolted awake, her heart already racing before her eyes fully opened. Nothing good ever came from calls before 7 o'clock. Her hand fumbled across the nightstand, knocking over a half-empty water glass before finding her phone. Mom, she answered, her voice thick with sleep and dread. The sound on the other end made her blood run cold, her mother's voice, weak and strained, interrupted by violent retching. Jennifer, honey, I'm so sorry. I've been sick all night. Food poisoning, I think. I can barely stand. I can't. Another wave of sickness cut her off. Jennifer sat up, fully awake now, her mind racing through implications like falling dominoes. Mom, it's okay. Don't worry about it. Just take care of yourself. But it wasn't okay. Nothing was okay. She ended the call and stared at the ceiling of their tiny bedroom, listening to Marcus's rhythmic breathing beside her. He'd finally fallen asleep around 4:00 a.m. after hours of tossing and turning. Today was the final day of testimony. Today, Officer Hansen would take the stand with Rex. Today could determine whether Marcus came home or went to prison for the next 20 years. And Jennifer had no one to watch the girls. She slipped out of bed, careful not to wake Marcus, and padded down the hallway of their apartment. The same apartment where Rex had sat and alerted 6 months ago, the apartment that had become ground zero for the destruction of their lives. In the smaller bedroom, her daughters slept in their shared bunk bed. 7-year-old Lily on top, 3-year-old Emma on the bottom, her tiny hand clutching the worn stuffed rabbit she'd had since birth. Jennifer checked her phone. 6:52 a.m. Court started at 9:00 a.m. She had 2 hours and 8 minutes to solve an impossible problem. She scrolled through her contacts with shaking hands. Her best friend Sarah called yesterday. Her son had the flu, couldn't risk exposing the girls. Marcus's sister in Ohio, too far. The neighbors they'd been friendly with. Most had distanced themselves after the arrest, their hellos in the hallway becoming awkward nods, then nothing at all. Funny how quickly people assumed guilt. The daycare didn't open until 8:00 a.m. and wouldn't take the girls without full payment. They were already $1,200 behind. Every penny they had, every cent they could borrow, had gone to supplementing Michael Chen's public defender services with a private investigator who'd found nothing useful. The money was gone. Their credit cards were maxed. The second mortgage on the apartment was 2 months in arrears. Jennifer sank onto the couch, her head in her hands. She could miss court, stay home with the girls, but Marcus needed her there. She was his only family support, the only friendly face in a courtroom full of people convinced of his guilt. He'd looked back at her yesterday during Thornhill's brutal opening statement, and she'd seen the fear in his eyes, not of prison, but of falling apart in front of the jury. She couldn't abandon him, not today. At 7:15 a.m. she made her decision. Lily was old enough to understand courtroom rules. She could sit quietly, read a book, be invisible. But Lily had school, and Jennifer couldn't pull her out. The girl had already missed so many days for therapy appointments, helping her process why Daddy might go away. The school counselor had called twice about Lily's anxiety levels. That left Emma, 3-year-old Emma, who asked 40 questions an hour and sang songs to herself, and had never sat still for more than 10 minutes in her entire life. Jennifer called the courthouse at 8:00 a.m., got transferred 4 times, finally reached Judge Thornton's clerk. "I understand this is highly irregular," Jennifer pleaded, "but I have no other options. My childcare fell through. My daughter is very well behaved. She won't make a sound, please." The clerk put her on hold. 3 minutes of tinny classical music. Then, "Judge Thornton says you may bring the child, but at the first disruption, you'll both be removed from the courtroom. No exceptions." "Thank you," Jennifer whispered. "Thank you so much." She woke Emma at 8:15, dressed her in the nicest outfit she owned, a navy dress with white polka dots that matched the rabbit she refused to be separated from. "We're going to see Daddy today," Jennifer explained, kneeling to Emma's eye level. "But it's a very special place with very special rules. We have to be super, super quiet, like mice. Can you be a quiet mouse for Mommy?" Emma nodded solemnly, her blue eyes wide. "Quiet like a mouse, I promise." They arrived at the courthouse at 8:47 a.m. Jennifer's hands shook as she went through security, lifting Emma to walk through the metal detector. The little girl clutched her rabbit tighter, overwhelmed by the cavernous lobby, the echo of voices, the stern-faced guards. "It's okay, baby," Jennifer murmured. "We're okay." But they weren't okay. Nothing was okay. Courtroom 4B was already filling when they entered. Jennifer felt the stares immediately, the whispers, the raised eyebrows. She held her head high and walked to her usual seat in the 3rd row, Emma's small hand gripped tightly in hers. Marcus turned when he heard them enter. His eyes widened when he saw Emma, a flash of panic crossing his face. Jennifer gave him a subtle nod. "I had no choice." He nodded back, "I understand." Judge Patricia Thornton entered promptly at 9:00 a.m., her sharp gaze immediately finding Jennifer and Emma. "Mrs. Webb," she said, her tone a warning wrapped in courtesy, "I trust we'll have no issues today." "No, Your Honor," Jennifer replied, her voice steady despite her terror. "I promise." Emma sat between Jennifer's legs on the hard wooden bench, her rabbit in her lap. She swung her feet, not quite reaching the floor, but stayed silent. Jennifer stroked her daughter's hair and prayed to every god she could think of for the child to stay quiet, stay still, stay invisible. The morning testimony crawled by. A forensics expert discussed fingerprint analysis, none found at the scene. A DNA specialist confirmed no biological evidence linked Marcus to the robbery. Michael Chen tried to build momentum with each negative result, but Thornhill dismissed it all with a practiced wave. "Absence of evidence isn't evidence of absence," the prosecutor reminded the jury. "The perpetrator wore gloves. He was careful, but he couldn't hide his scent." At 11:30 a.m., Judge Thornton called a brief recess. Emma had been perfect, quiet, patient, playing with her rabbit's ears. Jennifer bought her a juice box from the vending machine, let her stretch her legs in the hallway. "You're doing so good, sweetie," Jennifer whispered. "Just a little bit longer." When court resumed at noon, Thornhill stood with barely contained excitement. "Your Honor," the prosecution calls Officer Derek Hansen back to the stand, "and with the court's permission, we'd like to bring K9 Rex into the courtroom for a brief demonstration." Jennifer's stomach dropped. Michael Chen objected on procedural grounds, but Judge Thornton overruled him. "I'll allow it. Bailiff, please bring in the dog." The courtroom doors opened, and everything changed. The double doors at the back of courtroom 4B swung open with a dramatic flourish, and Rex entered like a celebrity walking onto a stage. The German Shepherd moved with fluid grace, his muscular frame rippling beneath his glossy black and tan coat. Every head in the courtroom turned to watch him, the packed gallery craning their necks for a better view. Jennifer felt Emma stiffen in her lap. Officer Hansen walked beside Rex, the leather leash held with practiced ease. The dog's ears were erect and alert, his dark eyes scanning the room with an intelligence that seemed almost human. As they approached the front of the courtroom, sunlight streaming through the tall windows caught the distinctive white patch on Rex's chest, making it stand out like a badge of honor. "Ladies and gentlemen," District Attorney Thornhill announced, his voice filled with showman's pride, "this is Rex, the dog whose testimony, if you will, is the cornerstone of our case." Several jurors smiled. Juror number 4, an elderly man who'd been stone-faced throughout the trial, actually leaned forward with interest. Even Judge Thornton observed with what might have been the ghost of approval on her usually stern features. Marcus sat frozen at the defense table, his knuckles white where they gripped the edge. Michael Chen whispered something urgent in his ear, but Marcus didn't seem to hear. His entire future was walking across the courtroom on 4 legs. "Officer Hansen," Thornhill continued, "would you demonstrate for the jury Rex's training and discipline?" Hansen nodded crisply. He positioned Rex in the center of the open floor space between the defense and prosecution tables, directly in the jury's line of sight. The dog sat immediately, without any visible command, his posture perfect. "Rex, stay," Hansen said firmly. Then he walked away, 10 feet, 15, 20. He went all the way to the back of the courtroom while Rex remained motionless, his eyes tracking his handler but his body still as a statue. The courtroom watched in collective silence, impressed despite themselves. Jennifer felt Emma's little body tense further. The child's breathing had changed, becoming quick and shallow. "Rex, come," Hansen called. The dog moved instantly, trotting to Hansen's side and sitting again without being told. The precision was remarkable, almost mechanical in its perfection. "Now watch this," Thornhill said to the jury. "Officer Hansen will demonstrate the hand signals Rex responds to. Officer." Hansen began a silent demonstration. A raised fist, Rex lay down. An open palm, Rex stood. A circular motion, Rex turned in a complete circle. Each movement was executed flawlessly, the bond between man and dog evident in every gesture. "This is the level of training we're talking about," Thornhill explained, his voice warm with admiration. "Years of conditioning, thousands of hours of practice. This isn't a pet, ladies and gentlemen. This is a highly trained professional with capabilities that exceed human limitations." Emma's small hand suddenly gripped Jennifer's arm. Jennifer looked down and saw her daughter's face had gone pale, her blue eyes fixed on Rex with an intensity that sent alarm bells ringing in Jennifer's mind. "Sweetie," Jennifer whispered, "what's wrong?" But Emma didn't respond. She was staring at Rex like she'd seen a ghost. Hansen brought Rex closer to the jury box now, letting them see him up close. "You can see the discipline in his eyes," Hansen explained. "When Rex is working, nothing distracts him. Not food, not other animals, not loud noises. He has one job and he does it with absolute reliability." The dog stopped directly in front of the jury box, and Hansen had him demonstrate the alert position, the same position he'd taken outside Marcus Webb's apartment door. Rex sat rigidly, his gaze fixed forward, every muscle in his body communicating focus and certainty. "This is what I saw on the night of March 15th, Hansen testified, his hand resting proudly on Rex's head. "This exact posture, outside apartment 3C, Rex telling me, without a doubt, that the person whose scent he'd been following had gone through that door." Emma started to squirm. Jennifer put a gentle hand on her shoulder, trying to keep her still, but the little girl pushed against her restraint. Her rabbit fell to the floor with a soft thump. "Emma, no," Jennifer whispered urgently. "We have to stay quiet, remember, like mice." But Emma wasn't listening anymore. She was climbing down from Jennifer's lap, her eyes never leaving Rex. Other people in the gallery were starting to notice, turning to see what the commotion was about. Thornhill was building to his conclusion. Officer Hanson, in your expert opinion. Emma's feet hit the floor. Is there any possibility that Rex made a mistake on the night of? Emma pulled free from Jennifer's grasp. Emma, Jennifer hissed, reaching for her, but the child was already moving, squeezing past the person sitting at the end of their row. Judge Thornton's head snapped toward the disruption. Mrs. Webb. I'm so sorry, Your Honor, Jennifer gasped, standing, trying to catch her daughter. But Emma was small and quick, and she was already in the aisle, moving toward the front of the courtroom. The entire room went silent, watching this tiny girl in a polka-dot dress march toward the German Shepherd with absolute determination. Mrs. Webb, control your child immediately or... Emma reached the barrier separating the gallery from the court floor. Her small hand gripped the wooden railing, and she pulled herself up, standing on her tiptoes. She lifted her other arm, pointing directly at Rex, her finger unwavering. Rex's ears twitched at the movement. His head turned slightly, acknowledging the child's presence. And then Emma spoke, her voice cutting through the courtroom with the crystal clarity that only a 3-year-old can achieve. That's Buddy. A ripple of laughter spread through the gallery. Even a few jurors smiled at the innocent interruption. Children and their imaginations. Children seeing dogs and thinking they knew them. It was charming, really, in a disruptive sort of way. But Jennifer wasn't laughing. She stood frozen in her row, her hand pressed to her mouth, her eyes wide with sudden, terrible recognition. Buddy. The park. Those afternoons. Oh God. That's Buddy, Mommy, Emma insisted, louder now, her voice rising with frustration that the adults weren't understanding. That's Buddy from the park. That's Buddy. The laughter was dying now, replaced by confused murmurs. Judge Thornton raised her gavel, ready to restore order and remove Jennifer and Emma from the courtroom. But Michael Chen was already on his feet, his chair scraping loudly against the floor. His face had transformed from resigned defeat to electric alertness in the span of a heartbeat. Your Honor, he shouted, his voice cracking with urgency. Your Honor, I need an emergency sidebar, right now. Thornhill turned, annoyed at the interruption. Your Honor, this is clearly just a... Now, Chen shouted again, already moving toward the bench. This is critical, Judge Thornton. This child may have just identified exculpatory evidence. Jennifer pushed past people in her row, reaching Emma and scooping her up. The little girl was crying now, frustrated that no one understood. It's Buddy, Mommy, she sobbed into Jennifer's shoulder. Why doesn't anyone see it's Buddy? And Jennifer held her daughter tight, her own heart hammering so hard she thought it might break through her ribs because she did see it. She saw it all. The white patch on the chest, the distinctive ear markings, the way Rex held his head, it was all exactly the same. I know, baby, Jennifer whispered, her voice shaking. I know it's Buddy. Judge Thornton's gavel came down hard. Council chambers, now, court is in recess for 15 minutes. But Jennifer knew 15 minutes would never be enough. Because in that moment, everything, absolutely everything, had just changed. Judge Patricia Thornton's chambers were nothing like the formal courtroom. Crowded bookshelves lined every wall, case files stacked in precarious towers on the floor, a coffee maker gurgling in the corner. But the atmosphere was electric with tension as 6 people crammed into the small space. Jennifer stood by the door, Emma clinging to her neck, still crying softly. Michael Chen paced like a caged animal, his usual defeated demeanor completely transformed. District Attorney Thornhill stood with his arms crossed, radiating irritation. Officer Hanson leaned against the wall, his jaw clenched tight. And Judge Thornton sat behind her desk, her fingers steepled, her experienced eyes missing nothing. This better be good, Mr. Chen, Thornton said, her voice sharp as broken glass. You just disrupted my courtroom over a toddler's outburst. Your Honor, if you'll just let Mrs. Webb explain. I don't want explanations from defense counsel. I want facts. Thornton turned her gaze to Jennifer. Mrs. Webb, your daughter called the police dog Buddy. Would you care to tell me why? Jennifer's hands shook so badly she nearly dropped her phone. Emma had finally quieted, her face buried in her mother's shoulder, exhausted from crying. Jennifer took a breath that felt like it might crack her ribs. For 3 months before the robbery, she began, her voice barely above a whisper, I took Emma to Jefferson Park every afternoon. It was our routine. 3 o'clock after her nap, we'd go to the playground. Relevance, Thornhill snapped. Let her finish, Thornton commanded. Jennifer's words came faster now, tumbling over each other. There was always a German shepherd there. Always. The owner, I never got his name, we just... You know how it is at parks, you talk but you don't really talk. He'd let Emma pet the dog. She loved that dog, she called him Buddy because that's what 3-year-olds do. They name things. Hansen shifted against the wall, his expression unreadable. Mrs. Webb, Judge Thornton said slowly, there are thousands of German shepherds in this county. Your daughter probably thinks every German shepherd is the same dog. No, Jennifer shook her head violently. No, that's what I thought too at first, but look. She held out her phone with trembling hands, pulling up her photo gallery. The first image showed Emma, wearing a pink sundress, her arms wrapped around a German shepherd's neck. The dog's tongue lolled out in a happy pant. And there, clear as day on his chest, was a distinctive white patch. The same white patch Rex had. Michael Chen moved closer, looking over Jennifer's shoulder. What's the date on that photo? January 22nd, Jennifer said, scrolling to the next image. Here's January 29th, February 5th, February 12th, February 19th. She kept scrolling, each photo showing Emma with the same German shepherd, the same white chest patch, the same distinctive marking above the left eye that Rex also had. Thornhill grabbed the phone from her hands, zooming in on the images. His confident expression flickered. Coincidence, Hansen said from the wall, but his voice had lost its certainty. Lots of German shepherds have white chest markings. Not like this. Chen pointed at the screen. Look at the pattern. It's not just white, it's shaped like an irregular diamond. And the marking above the eye, it's... Officer Hansen, Judge Thornton interrupted, her voice deadly quiet. Do you recognize this dog? The silence stretched for 5 heartbeats. 10. I can't be certain from a photo, Hansen finally said. That's not what I asked. Thornton stood, her full authority radiating from her small frame. I asked if you recognize this dog. Hansen's jaw worked. It could be, there's a resemblance to. Who owns this dog, Officer Hansen? Another pause, too long, way too long. Jennifer's mind was racing now, pieces clicking together like a puzzle she hadn't known she was solving. We stopped going to the park in late February, she said. Emma got sick, just a cold, but it lasted 2 weeks and then it rained a lot, and by the time we went back, the man and Buddy were gone. I didn't think anything of it. People stopped going to parks all the time. What did this man look like? Chen demanded. Jennifer closed her eyes, trying to pull the memory into focus. Tall, maybe 6 feet, heavyset. Brown hair, I think, but he usually wore a baseball cap. He had tattoos on his arms, I remember because Emma asked about them once. Your Honor, Thornhill interjected, this is all speculation. We have no proof that the dog in these photos has any connection to Rex, and even if they look similar. Officer Hansen, Judge Thornton's voice could have frozen fire. I'm going to ask you a direct question, and I expect a direct answer. Do you breed German shepherds as a side business? The color drained from Hansen's face. Officer Hansen. Yes, Your Honor, I have a small breeding operation. Registered and licensed, it's perfectly legal. The room exploded. You what? Thornhill spun on Hansen. Why wasn't this disclosed? It didn't seem relevant to. Didn't seem relevant. Chen's voice cracked. You're testifying about a dog's ability to track scent, and you didn't think it was relevant that you breed and sell dogs that might be genetically related to your K9 partner. They're not. Rex came from a different. Does Rex have any siblings? Judge Thornton cut through the chaos like a blade. Hanson's silence was answer enough. How many? 3 from his litter, Hanson admitted quietly. But they were all sold as puppies before Rex was even assigned to me. 2 went to families out of state. 1 went to who, Officer Hanson? Hanson looked at the floor. To a local buyer 2 years ago. Name? Thomas Pritchard. Jennifer gasped. That name, she knew that name. Where did she know that name? Chen was already on his phone, typing frantically. Pritchard. Your Honor, there's a Thomas Pritchard with an address at 638 Riverside Drive. That's 1 block from the Webb's apartment. The floor seemed to tilt beneath Jennifer's feet. Does he have a record? Thornton demanded. Chen's face went pale as he read. Yes, armed robbery 2019, assault 2021, paroled 18 months ago. Jesus Christ, Thornhill breathed. Judge Thornton stood motionless for a long moment, her mind clearly working through implications. When she finally spoke, her voice was ice. Officer Hanson, you tracked a scent from a crime scene to an apartment building using a dog whose brother lives 1 block away from that building. A brother owned by a man with a robbery conviction. And you didn't think to mention this. The scent signature is individual to each human, not each dog. But the trail could have been contaminated. If Rex's brother walked that route regularly, if the scents overlapped, if Thornton cut herself off, visibly controlling her fury. Mr. Chen, I'm granting a 48-hour continuance. Mrs. Webb, I need you to send those photos to my clerk immediately, along with any other information about when and where they were taken. Your Honor, Thornhill tried, the prosecution objects too. Your objection is noted and overruled. Officer Hanson, you're dismissed from the stand pending further investigation. Bailiff. The door opened. Get me Detectives Morrison and Chen from County. I want Thomas Pritchard's residence under surveillance within the hour, and I want a full background check on his movements for the night of March 15th. Jennifer's legs nearly gave out. Emma, sensing her mother's distress, began crying again softly. Michael Chen turned to Jennifer, his eyes bright with something she hadn't seen in 6 months. Hope. Mrs. Webb, he said quietly, your daughter may have just saved your husband's life. But Jennifer couldn't speak. She could only hold Emma tighter, this tiny person who had seen what no one else could see, who had spoken 2 words that might change everything. That's Buddy, Emma whispered into her mother's neck. I know, baby, Jennifer whispered back, tears streaming down her face. I know. 48 hours that followed felt like 48 years. Jennifer sat at her kitchen table at 2:17 a.m., unable to sleep, her laptop open in front of her. She'd sent Judge Thornton every photo she had of Emma with Buddy, 17 images total, spanning from January 15th to February 26th. Each one time-stamped, geotagged to Jefferson Park, showing her daughter with the same German Shepherd. The same dog that looked identical to Rex. Marcus sat across from her, his face haggard but alive with something that had been dead for months. Hope. Michael Chen had called 3 times already, telling them to stay calm, not to get their hopes up too high, but Jennifer could hear it in his voice too. The case was cracking open. At 9:00 a.m. sharp her phone rang. Chen's number. They found him, the attorney said without preamble. They found Pritchard's dog. Jennifer's hand flew to her mouth. And it's Rex's brother. Same litter confirmed by breeding records Hanson was forced to produce. The dogs are nearly identical, same markings, same build, same coloring. A geneticist is doing a DNA comparison, but visually, your daughter was right. That was Buddy she'd been playing with at the park. Marcus leaned across the table, trying to hear. Jennifer put the phone on speaker. "There's more," Chen continued, his voice tight with controlled excitement. "Detectives went to Pritchard's house this morning with a warrant. He wasn't there, but they found his dog in the backyard. And Jennifer, they found something else." "What?" "A jacket, North Face, dark blue, hanging in his closet. It matches the description from the convenience store surveillance footage. They're running it for DNA and fiber evidence now." Jennifer couldn't breathe. "Does this mean?" "It means we have reasonable doubt. It means the K9 tracking could have been following the wrong trail entirely. If Pritchard and his dog walked that route regularly, if he went from his house toward Patterson Avenue where the store is located, Rex could have been following his brother's scent path mixed with Pritchard's, not Marcus's trail at all." Marcus dropped his head into his hands. His shoulders shook with silent sobs. "When will we know more?" Jennifer asked, her own voice breaking. Judge Thornton ordered a full investigation. Detectives are pulling Pritchard's phone records, credit card statements, security footage from every business along that route. If he was anywhere near that store on March 15th, they'll find it. In the meantime, court is suspended. Your husband stays out on bail." After Chen hung up, Jennifer and Marcus sat in silence, holding hands across the table, afraid to believe it might really be over. By 3:00 p.m., the investigation had kicked into high gear. Detective Sarah Morrison stood in the security office of Patterson Dental Associates, a small practice located across the street and 2 doors down from the Quick Stop. The office had closed at 6:00 p.m. on the day of the robbery, but their security cameras ran 24 hours. "We already gave footage to the police 6 months ago," the office manager said nervously, pulling up files on her computer. "They said it wasn't clear enough to be useful." "Let me see it anyway," Morrison said. The footage appeared on screen, grainy, black and white, showing the street from an elevated angle. At 10:47 p.m., a figure appeared, moving quickly past the camera. The image quality was poor, the person's face obscured by a hood and mask. "Can you enhance it?" Morrison asked. "We don't have that kind of equipment. This is just a basic security system." Morrison stared at the screen, rewinding, watching the figure move. Something about the gait, the build. She pulled out her phone, found the file photo of Thomas Pritchard from his parole records. 6'1", 230 pounds, distinctive slumped shoulder on the left side from an old injury. She watched the footage again. The figure on screen walked with the same slump. "I need this footage copied and sent to the county forensics lab immediately," Morrison said. "And I need every frame from 10:30 p.m. to 11:30 p.m. At 7:45 p.m., forensic technician David Park sat in the county crime lab, running the dental office footage through enhancement software that hadn't existed 6 months ago. New program, just installed last week, capable of cleaning up low-resolution images better than anything they'd had before. He watched as the software processed frame by frame, sharpening edges, increasing contrast, reducing noise. The hooded figure became clearer, still not perfect, but better, much better. Park zoomed in on the person's hands. The resolution improved enough to see details, tattoos on the left forearm. He cross-referenced with Pritchard's arrest photos. The tattoo patterns matched. He moved to the gait analysis software, measuring stride length, body mechanics, the distinctive shoulder slump. The computer compared it to known footage of Pritchard from a grocery store surveillance video taken during his parole check-in 3 months earlier. Match probability, 94.7%. Park picked up his phone and called Detective Morrison. "I've got him," he said. "It's Pritchard on that footage. I'd stake my career on it." At 11:23 p.m., Thomas Pritchard sat in his living room, his brother's dog Axel, the dog Emma had called Buddy, sleeping at his feet. His phone buzzed with a news alert. Major development in Webb robbery case. His blood ran cold. The article was vague, citing unnamed sources, but it mentioned new evidence, a suspended trial, ongoing investigation. Pritchard's hands shook as he scrolled through his phone, deleting text messages, clearing browser history, his mind racing. He'd been so careful. The mask, the gloves, the hood. He'd walked his regular route with Axel earlier that evening, the same route he took every night. When the cops came with their tracking dog weeks later, he'd thought nothing of it. Let them track. The trail would lead to a dozen different houses in the neighborhood. But he hadn't counted on the tracking dog being Axel's brother. Hadn't counted on the dogs being nearly identical. Hadn't counted on a 3-year-old child's memory. Pritchard looked at the jacket hanging in his closet, the one he'd been too sentimental to throw away, thinking he'd gotten away with it. He should have burned it months ago. He had maybe hours before they came for him, maybe less. Axel stirred at his feet, sensing his owner's distress. The dog looked up with trusting brown eyes, eyes just like Rex's eyes, like they'd been looking in a mirror designed by genetics and fate. "I'm sorry, boy," Pritchard whispered, grabbing his car keys. But before he could reach the door, headlights flooded his front window. 3 police cars, 6 officers, Detective Morrison at the front, warrant in hand. Thomas Pritchard's legs gave out, and he sank to the floor as they pounded on his door, knowing his freedom and his terrible mistake had just run out. At 11:47 p.m., Jennifer's phone rang again. "They arrested him," Chen said, his voice shaking with emotion. "They arrested Thomas Pritchard. They found the jacket, the shoes, and surveillance footage that places him at the scene. Jennifer, it's over. Marcus is innocent. We can prove it." Jennifer couldn't speak through her tears. She handed the phone to Marcus and walked down the hallway to the girl's bedroom, where Emma slept peacefully, her stuffed rabbit tucked under her chin. Jennifer knelt beside the bed, pressing a kiss to her daughter's forehead. "Thank you, baby," she whispered. "You saved us all." Emma stirred slightly, smiled in her sleep, and didn't wake. The Jefferson County Courthouse erupted into controlled chaos at 9:00 a.m. when Judge Patricia Thornton reconvened Marcus Webb's trial. But this time, Marcus sat not as a defendant awaiting his fate, but as a man whose nightmare was finally ending. The gallery was packed beyond capacity. News crews lined the back wall, reporters scribbling frantically in notebooks, cameras positioned to capture every moment. The story had exploded across local and national media. Toddler's 2 words expose police K9 error. Innocent man nearly convicted on faulty dog evidence. 3-year-old saves father from prison. Jennifer sat in her usual third-row seat, but today she held her head high. Emma was with her mother. This wasn't a scene for a child to witness. Marcus turned and met her eyes, and for the first time in 6 months he smiled, really smiled. District Attorney Richard Thornhill stood, his earlier confidence completely evaporated. His face was ashen, his expensive suit somehow looking rumpled despite being freshly pressed. "Your Honor, in light of new evidence that has come to light, the state moves to dismiss all charges against Marcus Webb with prejudice." The courtroom erupted. Judge Thornton's gavel came down hard. "Order, I will have order." Michael Chen stood, savoring this moment. In 3 years as a public defender, he'd never had a victory this complete, this vindicating. "Your Honor, the defense has no objection to the dismissal. However, we request that the record reflect the egregious failures that nearly sent an innocent man to prison for 20 years. Thornton nodded grimly. "Mr. Chen, I share your concerns. Before I officially dismiss these charges, I want the full investigative report entered into the record. Detective Morrison." Sarah Morrison approached the bench, her expression serious. She'd worked 72 hours straight to build the case against Thomas Pritchard, and the evidence she'd uncovered was damning. "Your Honor, our investigation confirmed that Thomas Pritchard committed the robbery at the Quick Stop on March 15th. Enhanced surveillance footage from Patterson Dental Associates, previously dismissed as too grainy, was processed through new software and conclusively shows Mr. Pritchard passing the camera at 10:47 p.m., the exact time of the robbery. Gait analysis confirms a 94.7% match. The footage shows distinctive tattoo on his left forearm matching Mr. Pritchard's known tattoos. Thornhill stood motionless, his earlier case dissolving before his eyes. Morrison continued. We recovered a North Face jacket from Mr. Pritchard's residence matching the description from the convenience store clerk. Fiber analysis confirmed fabric transfer from the store's door handle. We found $1,200 in marked bills from the Quick Stop's register that day, hidden in Mr. Pritchard's garage in a toolbox. Murmurs rippled through the courtroom. Marcus felt tears streaming down his face, but he didn't wipe them away. Cell phone tower data places Mr. Pritchard's phone in the immediate vicinity of the Quick Stop at the time of the robbery. His own phone's accelerometer data shows movement patterns consistent with running. He fled on foot exactly as witnesses described. But what about the K9 tracking? Judge Thornton asked, though her tone suggested she already knew the answer. Morrison's expression hardened. That's where the case gets complicated, Your Honor. Officer Hanson's K9 partner Rex has a brother from the same litter, a dog named Axel, owned by Thomas Pritchard and residing at 638 Riverside Drive, 1 block from Marcus Webb's apartment. The gallery exploded with shocked gasps and furious whispers. Rex tracked a scent trail from the Quick Stop to 742 Riverside Drive, where Mr. Webb lives, but the route Rex followed is the exact same route that Pritchard walks daily with Axel. Pritchard's regular path takes him past the Quick Stop, along Patterson Avenue and north on Riverside Drive. The dogs are littermates, nearly identical genetically. Their scent markers would be extraordinarily similar. Judge Thornton leaned forward. Are you saying the dog tracked his own brother's scent instead of the perpetrator's? We're saying the scent trail was contaminated and ambiguous, Your Honor. Rex likely picked up a mixed trail, Pritchard's human scent combined with Axel's canine scent markers that Rex recognized as familiar, possibly even following the path his brother regularly walked rather than the specific perpetrator's trail. When the trail led to Riverside Drive, where both Pritchard and Webb live, Rex made an association. But he stopped at Webb's door, not Pritchard's, possibly because Webb's building was the first significant scent concentration point on that block. Officer Derek Hanson sat in the back of the courtroom, his uniform stripped of its badges, his face buried in his hands. An internal affairs investigation had been launched the moment Judge Thornton learned he'd failed to disclose his breeding operation and the existence of Rex's littermate in the area. Officer Hanson knew, or should have known, that having a genetic sibling of his K9 partner living in the investigation area created a massive conflict and potential for contamination, Morrison stated flatly. He sold Axel to Thomas Pritchard 2 years ago. He had Pritchard's address in his breeding records. He knew Pritchard had a criminal history, its public record, and he never disclosed any of this. Thornhill finally found his voice. Your Honor, the prosecution had no knowledge of Officer Hanson's breeding operation or the existence of Rex's brother. Had we known? Had you known, you never would have brought charges, Thornton finished icily. Mr. Thornhill, your office relied on a single piece of evidence, K9 tracking, without proper vetting of potential conflicts or contamination. You had no physical evidence, no reliable witness identification, no digital evidence. You pursued this case on the word of a dog whose handler had undisclosed conflicts of interest. Thornhill had no response. Judge Thornton turned to Marcus. Mr. Webb, please stand. Marcus rose on shaking legs, Michael Chen beside him. Mr. Webb, this court owes you an apology that words cannot adequately express. You were arrested, charged, and tried for a crime you did not commit. Your family's savings were depleted. Your reputation was destroyed. Your children suffered trauma, and all of it because of a flawed investigation that relied too heavily on a single piece of questionable evidence. Thornton's voice grew stronger, angrier. This case will serve as a cautionary tale about the dangers of treating any investigative tool, even highly trained K-9 units, as infallible. Dogs are remarkable, but they are not magic. They can be wrong. Their handlers can have conflicts, and the justice system must account for these possibilities. She looked at the prosecution table. All charges against Marcus Webb are hereby dismissed with prejudice. Mr. Webb, you are free to go. This court apologizes for the injustice you have suffered. The gavel came down with finality. Marcus collapsed into his chair, sobbing openly. Michael Chen gripped his shoulder, his own eyes wet. Behind them, Jennifer pushed through the crowd, climbing over the railing, not caring about courtroom protocol anymore. She threw her arms around her husband, and they held each other while the courtroom erupted in applause. An unprecedented breach of decorum that Judge Thornton allowed without objection. "It's over," Jennifer whispered into Marcus's ear. "Baby, it's over, you're coming home." Marcus could only nod, too overwhelmed to speak, holding his wife like she was the only solid thing in a world that had finally stopped spinning out of control. In the back of the courtroom, Derek Hansen slipped out quietly, his career in ruins, his reputation destroyed, knowing that his failure to disclose had nearly stolen an innocent man's life. And 1 block away, Thomas Pritchard sat in a holding cell, his bail denied, facing the 20-year sentence that Marcus Webb had barely escaped. Justice, delayed but finally delivered, had spoken. 6 months after the charges were dismissed, Marcus Webb stood in the kitchen of their apartment making pancakes. It was Saturday morning, 8:47 a.m., and sunlight streamed through the windows he'd spent the previous weekend cleaning until they sparkled. Small acts of normalcy had become sacred rituals, proof that his life had truly been returned to him. "Daddy, you're burning them," 7-year-old Lily called from the table, giggling. Marcus flipped the pancake quickly, caught it perfectly, and turned with a theatrical bow. "Never doubt the pancake master." Emma, now 3.5, clapped her hands from her booster seat. "Do it again, Daddy, do it again." The apartment looked different now. Not physically, they still had the same worn furniture, the same faded curtains, but the atmosphere had transformed. Laughter lived here again. Hope had moved back in. The crushing weight of impending doom no longer pressed down on every moment. Jennifer emerged from the bedroom, her hair still wet from the shower, and wrapped her arms around Marcus's waist from behind. "Smells good." "Everything smells good now," Marcus murmured, turning to kiss her forehead. "Coffee smells good. Rain smells good. Even the garbage truck smells good because it means I'm here to smell it." She understood. Freedom had a scent when you'd nearly lost it forever. The settlement from the county had come through last week, $750,000 for wrongful prosecution, emotional distress, and legal fees. It wasn't about the money, though the money meant Jennifer could finally sleep without nightmares about bankruptcy. It was about acknowledgement, about the system admitting it had failed them catastrophically. They'd paid off every debt, put money aside for the girls' college funds, and Marcus had even started looking at houses. Small ones, nothing fancy, but with a backyard where Emma could play. "Can we go to the park today?" Emma asked, syrup covering her chin. "I want to swing." "Of course, Princess," Marcus said, "right after breakfast." Emma had no idea she was famous. No concept that her face had been on national news, that legal experts were citing the Buddy case in journals and courtrooms across the country. To her, that day in court was just a fuzzy memory of the time she saw the doggy that looked like her friend. They'd made a conscious decision to keep it that way. Emma didn't need the weight of being a hero. She just needed to be 3 years old. At Jefferson Park, Marcus pushed Emma on the swings while Lily played on the monkey bars. The park was crowded with weekend families, dogs running in the designated area, the sound of children's laughter mixing with distant traffic. A woman approached hesitantly, mid-40s, kind face, uncertain smile. "Excuse me, are you Marcus Webb?" Marcus's shoulders tensed instinctively. Even now, 6 months later, strangers recognizing him triggered a fight-or-flight response. "I am," he said carefully. "I just wanted to say I'm so sorry for what happened to you. My husband is a defense attorney in Ohio, and he's using your case to challenge K-9 evidence in one of his trials. You've probably saved other innocent people from going through what you did." Marcus felt the familiar tightness in his chest, the emotion that still caught him off guard. "Thank you. That means more than you know." The woman smiled and walked away, and Marcus went back to pushing Emma, who demanded he push higher. He'd learned that his case had indeed become a watershed moment. Officer Derek Hansen had been terminated and faced potential criminal charges for evidence tampering and failure to disclose conflicts of interest. The Jefferson County Sheriff's Department had completely overhauled their K-9 program, implementing mandatory disclosure requirements for handlers with breeding operations and establishing protocols for identifying potential scent contamination. 3 other cases Hansen had worked were being reviewed. 2 men were already filing appeals. Thomas Pritchard had been sentenced to 18 years for the robbery, enhanced by his prior record. He tried to flee the night of his arrest, making it only 40 miles before being pulled over for a broken taillight. The marked bills were still in his trunk. The convenience store clerk, Maria Rodriguez, had sent the Webb family a handwritten letter apologizing for not being able to identify the robber. She'd included a $50 gift card for the little girl who knew the truth. Emma had used it to buy a new stuffed animal, a dog, naturally. That evening, after the girls were in bed, Marcus and Jennifer sat on their small balcony, sharing a bottle of wine neither of them had to feel guilty about purchasing. "I got a job offer today," Marcus said quietly. "Construction foreman, good pay, union benefits, they don't care about the arrest. The owner said anyone who got railroaded like I did deserves a second chance." Jennifer squeezed his hand. "Are you going to take it?" "Yeah, I think I am. I need to work again, need to feel useful." They sat in comfortable silence, watching the city lights flicker in the distance. "Sometimes I think about that moment," Jennifer said softly. "When Emma pointed at Rex, 2 words, that's all it took. 2 words from a 3-year-old and everything changed." Marcus nodded. 2 words that saved my life." "She doesn't know, does she? She doesn't understand what she did." "No, and I hope she never has to." Marcus paused, his voice thick with emotion. "But someday when she's older I'll tell her. I'll tell her that when her daddy needed her most, she spoke up. She saw the truth when no one else could. And she wasn't afraid to say it out loud, even when the whole room was laughing." Inside, they could hear Emma talking in her sleep, probably dreaming about pancakes or swings or dogs. Innocent, unburdened, free. "We should get a dog," Jennifer said suddenly. Marcus looked at her surprised. "Really?" "Really? Not a German shepherd, too many memories, but a dog. Emma asked for one last week. Said Buddy would want her to have her own puppy." Marcus smiled, tears sliding down his cheeks for the 1,000th time since his release. "Yeah, let's get a dog." They stayed on the balcony until the wine was gone and the city had quieted. 2 people who'd walked through hell and somehow found their way back, holding tight to each other, and the second chance they'd been given by the smallest voice in the room. Inside, Emma stirred, clutched her stuffed rabbit closer, and smiled in her sleep. She'd saved her father without even knowing it. And that, Marcus thought as he finally headed to bed, was the purest kind of heroism there was. The end.